Thank you very much, everybody. I have a horrific cold, so you probably better stay away from me. Let me make sure I got the microphone up far enough. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay. Well, I want to thank all of you for coming out. I am really delighted to see so many people who are here to help us launch this next chapter in my life and the next chapter in the lives of so many people. I see longtime friends here. I see relatives here. I see, people I work with. I see members of our cabinet from 2011 through 2015 who are here. I see friends who I work with to help move along some causes that weren't necessarily all that popular in the District of Columbia, but we worked hard to make them popular. And we have made progress on a lot of those fronts, ladies and gentlemen. And I want to thank all of you for coming out to be a part of this today. I do want to say a word about a friend who passed on in recent days, and there's a memorial service being held for her this afternoon. And that is Gigi Ransom, who was an outstanding ANC commissioner. She was an activist. She put the G and go get them. And I really regret that she is gone. But she leaves behind a strong legacy, ladies and gentlemen, of work that will serve the city for so many years to come. I also want to thank the person who is hosting us here today, and that is Pastor Steve Young. I think Pastor Young is here with us. Maybe he'll be able to close this out at the end. Yes, sir. There he is. Pastor Young has been working all day. I think he had a funeral he had to do earlier, and I want to thank him for being here, for being such a good friend for such a long time, to me personally and to our ward, and the work that he has done, especially for young people. I don't know how many of you have been to a service here at the House of Praise on a Sunday, but when you come in here, these are people who really, they have flocked to Pastor Steve Young. They have come here. Many of them probably didn't go to any church before they came here. Many of them were probably not connected to God in the ways that we would hope they would be until they came here. And they came here because of Pastor Steve Young, who is a dear friend. He works 24/7. You can count on him to walk the talk, because that's just who he is. And I ask you to join me in saying a genuine thank you to Steve Young. I also want to express my appreciation for those who were, we had some young people, I may have been in the back of the town, some young people did the Pledge of Allegiance. We were supposed to anyway. Maybe they did, maybe they didn't. But you know what? It was a virtual Pledge of Allegiance if they didn't get it done. I also want to thank Carrie Thornhill, who I've known for so many years. Carrie is just an incredible human being. She works so hard. There is no cause that's worthy of being involved in that Carrie hasn't been involved in, and she's now she's really the moving force. She isn't the chair that James Pittman is, but she is the moving force behind the Dunbar Alumni Federation. In fact, you go to the school on any day, and Carrie Thornhill is there working hard to be able to open doors and avenues for our young people in high school to make sure that they have the chances that they otherwise wouldn't have. So, Carrie, thank you for such a sterling introduction. Thank you for being my friend. Thank you for such a Come on, ladies and gentlemen, give it up to Carrie Thornhill. I also want to thank Rustin Lewis. I want to thank him. He actually is my neighbor. Rustin he doesn't use his doctoral, Lewis very much, but he's certainly entitled to it because he has a doctorate degree. He lives very close by to me. He has worked with young people for a number of years, and we're glad that he's going to be one of those who's going to work on an initiative that we are going to work hard to make happen as a part of this campaign. And then in the aftermath of that, I won't say if we win, when we win. You know, campaigns are typically about the future. While I'm going to focus on that a tad, I do want to just also take a brief moment to talk a little bit about the past. And that is injustice, ladies and gentlemen. The fact of the matter is, I think without you all, with the folks, many of you in this room, I might not be standing here today. It was your support, your strength, your faith that helped carry me through what was, I think, just an incredibly unfair, difficult time in my life. And I want to thank you all so much for being there. Just so you know, I have moved forward. While I'm moving forward, I won't forget what happened, because I don't want that to happen to somebody else if we can possibly avoid it. We can't and we shouldn't tolerate injustice. Frankly, we see too much injustice in America today. I think we know that, thank you, sir. That work? I think we know that injustice can ruin lives, and sometimes Pastor Young right at the end's lives because of what happens to our folks. I want you all to know that I have never turned away from injustice when I saw it, and I never will turn away from injustice. You heard in my introduction by Carrie. I worked very early in my career and for quite some time with people with cognitive disabilities. We call it intellectual disabilities now. We have even changed the terminology. But what I was really fighting for was to help young people, adults, shed the shackles of bigotry that they were subjected to so unfairly. When I started, there was a place called Forest Haven. Anybody remember that? Yes. Forest Haven had 1,300 people who were living there. And I took the position, along with some others, who wanted to argue that, well, we can clean it up, but we always need a place like that. My position was, no, you don't need a place like that. And frankly, while it took 13 years to get done, I was so happy the day that we saw the padlock put on Forest Haven, and everybody who had been in Forest Haven district had moved into the community, into the District of Columbia, like they should have been able to do. I also saw injustice when I was with Covenant House, because we had so many young people who had been rejected by their own families. They had no place to go, and Covenant House was a place internationally that was a refuge for young people as we tried to help them get back on their feet and be able to feed and have a successful life. And of course, as I've just alluded to, I saw injustice in my own life. But Pastor, I never lost faith. I never lost faith in God. I never lost faith in God to show his path. And that the path would lead to overcoming what was an unjust situation, an unjust burden, and thanks to so many people, we were able to overcome that. Amen. Now, you know, I see injustice in this city every day, ladies and gentlemen. We have 670,000 people who live in the District of Columbia. And frankly, some of you heard me say this before, some of you know it already. We have more people that live in the District of Columbia than in the entire state of Wyoming. We have more people that live in the District of Columbia than the entire state of Vermont. Bernie Sanders, right? You hear that, Bernie Sanders? Yeah, when are we going to have a presidential candidate here, right? But the fact of the matter is, we are every day denied the opportunity to be able to enjoy and exercise full democracy and the basic rights that we supposedly are guaranteed by our Constitution. You know, that injustice, ladies and gentlemen, will never be solved. It'll never be resolved until we as a people resolve to fight. Until, as Dr. Martin Luther King said, and I'm paraphrasing now, and that is until justice rolls down like a mighty stream. We've got a long way to go to get there, ladies and gentlemen. The fact of the matter, what we have is plastic taxation without representation. That's what this country was founded on, the resistance to taxation without representation. Yet we practice it against the people who live in our nation's capital. How many of you all are aware that there are 114 nations' capitals in the free world? We are the only one whose representative doesn't have a vote in the national legislative body, even though we have an outstanding person who's filling that capacity. You know, I watched, just speaking again about injustice, I watched as we became a pawn in a federal budget fight, and some of us went to jail protesting against that. I saw an effort to try to force us to shut down our city, and it was Ted Cruz who did it, by the way, for those of you who might be thinking about voting for him. It was Ted Cruz who did it, all right? So please disabuse yourself of any notion of voting for that man if you think there's any justice that's going to come from him in the District of Columbia. Our city, they attempted to shut it down. Anybody remember that? 2013. They sent me a memo from the Office of Management and Budget. And they said, Mayor Gray, we need the shutdown plan. I said, my shutdown plan? So why do we have to shut? Well, your budget has to be approved, your district's budget has to be approved by the Congress, and everybody's budget that has to be approved by the Congress has to be shut down. So we need your shutdown plan. So we huddled a little bit, and I went back to them, I said, now, are there any exceptions to this? And they said, yes. If you have essential employees, then they can be exempted from this. I said, oh, okay. So let me tell you what our shutdown plan is. Everybody who works for the District of Columbia is essential, and we're not shutting down anything, you all. Now we have now in the budget every year a provision that says the District of Columbia will not be shut down if the federal government shuts down. That's some progress, but that's just small progress, ladies and gentlemen. When are we really going to resolve to fight the battle that we need to fight in order to be able to once and for all solve this problem? You know, we got some freedom fighters in here. I see them on the side over here. I see them back in the audience here in the church. People who have fought hard to try to resolve this. But you know what? We can't be celebrating. We got 670,000 people, and if we get 500 people to a rally, we then think we have really accomplished something. We haven't accomplished a thing, man, until we, on our terms and conditions, shut down the city ourselves and to say to our federal leaders, our federal establishment, that enough is enough and we're not going to take this anymore. So, as a part of my work in Ward 7, I'm going to work to lead the fight here. To lead the fight, and I hope others across the city will join us in the fight to bring democracy, real democracy, to the District of Columbia, because we've earned it and we deserve it. You know, when I announced my candidacy, I said there's a lot of work to be done, and if we don't do it, who will? And if we don't do it, who will?
Not who's in there now.
All right. You know, I'm proud of what we were able to do during my time as mayor. When I left office, we had 97% of our children and 93% of our adults in the District of Columbia who had health care insurance. And just so you're clear, that was not because of Obamacare. That was because of the work that had been done in the District of Columbia to be able to bring us to that point. The question for us now is not who has coverage, but what are we going to do to make sure that the coverage we have is used to prevent people from becoming ill in the first place. Amen. We have some of the worst health disparities in the entire nation in the district, and some of the worst in the city are in Ward 7. And frankly, we need to get people to the point where they stop thinking about going to an emergency room and think about going to a health care provider who will stop people from getting sick in the first place. You know, during my time as mayor, we created 40,000 new jobs in the city. And we had the lowest unemployment rate in many years during that time. In fact, in Ward 7, we went from 18% when I came into office down to 11%. Now, that's good progress, but that means there's still far too many people who are out of jobs, ladies and gentlemen. We have a lot of work to do right here. We also invested hundreds of millions of dollars in affordable housing. And we still have the conversation today because when you do the math, you start to realize that the $300 million that we put in really is a drop in the bucket. It is just the beginning in terms of the families, the senior citizens, for example, who need affordable housing in the District of Columbia. And we need to recognize that there are people who are leaving the city every day because they no longer can afford to live here. People who really helped to pave the way for where the city is today, and now they can't afford to live here anymore. You know, to go back to what Kerry was saying, I'm proud that we were able to rebuild and renovate schools and libraries. You know, we did that all across the city, and we certainly did a lot here in Ward 7. Just go right down the street to look at H.D. Woodson High School. What used to be called the Tower of Power? It was a tower, all right. And I'm glad that we were able to rebuild it because it's the kind of facility now, it's the kind of building that our children absolutely deserve to be able to go to. It's got a first-class swimming pool. It's got a first-class gym. It is a first-class building. And for those who don't know, who don't follow this stuff, this is the first time probably in about 50 years that the District of Columbia has one of its traditional public schools that is #1 in basketball across the entire region. And guess what it is, ladies and gentlemen? It is H.D. Woodson. I'm also, as Kerry put it, I'm very proud of what we were able to do with early childhood education. Kerry was one of those who worked closely with me right from the very beginning to be able to make this happen. And there were those who said, well, you know, we don't have the money to do all of that. You know, let's keep doing what we've been doing in the past and just put more money into it. I said, no, we don't roll that way. We're not going to deal with incrementalism. We're going to do this the right way. And that is precisely what we did. As you heard, we have 80% of our 3-year-olds that go to school all day, every day. Can you imagine 80% of our 3-year-olds that go to school all day, every day? And 94%, virtually every one of our 4-year-olds that goes to school all day, every day. And there are probably some people in here who now have children who are in, the pre-K program. My biggest disappointment, that's the work we still have to do, in my opinion, that is, we got to do the same thing for our infants and toddlers. Yes. We need to have a place for every infant and toddler whose parent wants him or her in school to be able to go there. You know, I've said to people, my staff asked me to stop doing this because they said it sounded creepy. But I would say that that I would put a fetus into a program if I could. And you know what? We have. It's called prenatal care, ladies and gentlemen. And that's what we need to do. That's where the battle is won and lost. We talk about children going to school at 5 years of age. Man, by the time they go to school at 5 years of age, it's already lost for many of those kids. It's already over for them. It is not because our children who live in certain areas of the city are innately unable to be able to learn and achieve. It's because they have come up under a set of conditions that they can't do as well as they otherwise would. And frankly, we can level that playing field tremendously if we get all of these kids into early childhood education, get them into pre-K programs, get them into infant and toddler programs, and make sure those moms to be are in programs of prenatal care. And you're familiar with Educare right here in Ward 7. You know what Educare? You see, you need to go there. Educare is a fantastic place. We helped to get that built and started. And I was over there the other day, and the director's, walking us around, and she kept saying, "We got kids in preschool. We got kids in preschool." And I just said, "Director Davis, can I just ask you to do something?" I said, "Would you stop talking about preschool?" Because when a 3-year-old is going to an organization like this, they're going to school. That is school. Let them understand that they are going to school, because every time you say preschool, it sounds like they're not in school. And that's what I want to build on here in Ward 7 in the next 4 years, and that is the opportunity to make sure that we have these kinds of services available to these young people. Now, think about it. If we get these young kids, these very young kids, into programs and school and whatnot, it means that parents who would like to be able to work will have a chance to go to work. And we can reach out to them to make sure that they are fully trained and that the doors open up for them to be able to get a job. And that will continue to bring down that 11% unemployment rate, ladies and gentlemen, because a lot of the people that we're talking about are parents who, for a variety of reasons, aren't able to work. We've seen some of the biggest test score gains in the nation, in the District of Columbia. And we still got a long ways to go. If you look at our overall scores, in fact, you look at the scores under the PARC, which is the new test that's used now. When you look at those scores, we still got a lot of work to do. Yes, we're making gains, but we're nowhere near what we need to be. We have a robust charter and traditional public school movement in this city. Very robust in Ward 7, not so robust on the other side of the city. But you know what? If you people still want to have the argument about charters or traditionals, that is a useless, played out argument, ladies and gentlemen. My issue is, I want our children to be able to achieve the best they possibly can. And we need to recognize that our charter schools are not the enemy. They are there to be able to achieve with our kids. If we have some fantastic charter schools that are doing well with our kids, we have some charter schools that were not so good. And one of the things about that is, when a charter school doesn't do well, it either improves or it goes out of business. And the same thing should be with our traditional public schools. That is, if they don't do well, then they go out of business also. And that's what's going to improve outcomes for our children. You know, I talk a lot about the taxi cab industry in the city. And we've made some real improvements in the taxi cab industry. We got uniform color schemes now. I had somebody cynically say to me once when I talked about doing this that the predominant color of our cabs in the District of Columbia was rust. And, you know, I said, well, I don't believe that. I said, we can do better than this, of course. And we have. We got credit card readers now. We got dome lights that people can see wherever they are. We've made some really significant improvements in our taxi cab industry. But you know, one of the biggest reasons why our taxi cab industry has improved? Uber. And the reason why I'm saying that is because it creates competition. And that's what we've done in education. We've got competition in education. Parents have choice. We got about 40,000 kids who go to charter schools in the District of Columbia. It isn't because they were forced to go there. It's because their parents made the decision for them to be able to go to charter schools. And frankly, in the course of it, we've seen the uplifting of our traditional public schools, because I think people have realized that unless you get better, you're just not going to exist. So I want to continue to work to try to improve that as well. And of course, crime, you heard Kerry mention that earlier, it was at the lowest level that it's been in many years, until last year we had, 162 homicides? The highest number of homicides we had, and I'm going to take out the Navy Yard, okay? But the highest number of homicides we had extracting the Navy Yard, we had 102. And we had as few as 88 during that time. And frankly, so much of this can be addressed by being able to connect with the communities and understand why some of these things are being done. And when you walk through a community, people will know who you are and know why you're there, and that is to try to be helpful. Now, in my opinion, this is a campaign for the people of Ward 7. Our city is vibrant, it's growing, and we got lots of new residents moving in, but we also have far too many residents who are without jobs. And we know we got more work to do around economic development. You know, one of the many things that Carrie does is she works with a lot of small businesses here in Ward 7. And I was just at a meeting that was held about 3 weeks ago, where there was a presentation around, you know, where we are at that point. We're seeing growth on Minnesota Avenue. We got brand new, you know, residents over there on the corner. And on the first level of that, we got retail that didn't exist previously. We got Dunkin' Donuts. We got salad time. It's a nice array of options, and people have to discipline themselves. That if if you're trying to watch the calories, you don't want to do too much of Dunkin' Donuts. But there are other opportunities as well there. But we've seen also, we saw the downside, and that was Raise the Steaks, which was a sit-down restaurant, didn't make it, and it went out of business. But that's a blip on the screen, ladies and gentlemen. There is more to come. We also saw what happened with Walmart. If somebody had gotten me that day for work, I was ready to punch somebody in the mouth. I mean, honestly, that was an unbelievable day. I found out about it earlier when somebody called me and said, I'm sorry, but Walmart is pulling out. They got 260 stores that they're closing down internationally, and they're just not going to build the 2 stores, one in Capitol Gateway and the other in Skyland. And I said, how in the heck did they do something like that? That is absolutely unconscionably disingenuous. And I put it another way, okay? But it was unconscionably disingenuous to me for them to have done something like that. They're gone now, and I don't think they're coming back. We worked pretty hard to get them here in the first place, and we worked with them to try to make sure that the wave was paid. Well, we will, Pat. And with your help, we'll be able to help the people here. We're going to solve that problem. There is if you go down to Skyland and stand on that site, which is now completely cleared, but for the CVS, which is now been vacated, the vistas from that site are absolutely incredible. We have incredible vistas over in Ward 7. And you know what? There's a part of me that says, I hope a bunch of folks don't discover this, because they're going to be moving in and trying to buy the houses out from under us and all of that sort of thing. But that is a challenge that awaits us. We also have work to do with Penn Branch. How many of you have been to Penn Branch recently? Penn Branch is in desperate need of an identity. It really, in my opinion, needs a makeover. It's not a matter of just attracting other stores into Penn Branch. It's really reconfiguring it completely to be able to say, this is what we want it to look like. And you know what? We can't sit around and wring our hands, man. It'll happen if we get on it. It'll happen if people understand that we're not going to take no for an answer. That we're going to make this happen, ladies and gentlemen. And we can do that with Penn Branch. I don't know how many of you all are following Parkside. Parkside is, of course, on the west side of Ward 7. Parkside is growing rapidly. That was one of the things that we hoped to be able to do with city interests. There's new housing over there. There's retail that will be coming to Parkside because folks will follow the dollars. The retailers will follow the dollars, and there will be retail developing in Parkside. One of the problems with Parkside is the infrastructure needs. There's only one way in and one way out of Parkside. The other thing is too that I keep looking at the Pepco site, and that's what divides. That plant is not used for generating any electricity anymore. It is what divides Parkside from River Terrace, which is a phenomenal community. Wouldn't it be nice if we can figure out how to get that Pepco site to be used for other economic development purposes, and then we got people coming from Parkside and people coming from River Terrace to be able to use the amenities that we will create there. And somebody's sitting there probably saying, what have you been drinking? What did you smoke before you got here? But you know what? That's some of what people have said about things we historically have overcome in the past. That's what people said about integration. That that we'll never have people doing things together. It's what people said about marriage equality in the District of Columbia. And I was proud to be one of the people who worked hard to make sure that happened here in our city. So we can make that happen too. The uniting of Parkside and River Terrace. We can call it Riverside or Park Terrace or whatever you all want to call it at that stage. It'll all be one. And I've worked with the pastor. The pastor is a multi-talented guy. I've worked with him on another project, and we're going to make sure that we work with you to get this done, Pastor. And that's the Strand. Strand Theater. The Strand Theater apparently was a movie theater back in the day, way back in the day. But it is not a movie theater anymore. We invested, I think, a couple $1 million in helping to substantially upgrade the foundation of the Strand, and we're now working with the pastor and the other developers to be able to identify those who will be coming in there to be able to occupy that building. We did have one entity identified, and that kind of fell through, not the way that the Walmart fell through. It fell through in another kind of way. But we're going to work to make sure that that happens also. You know, a couple of years ago, I guess it was, we had, some of you will recall we did our 5-year economic development plan, and I promised two things, that we were going to do individual ward plans for Ward 8 and Ward 7, and we did both. And the reason is because we wanted to be able to focus on the development within those wards. Some of you were probably there. We had it at H.D. Woodson High School, the working on the Ward 7 plan. And we brought some of the same principles there, and what was developed, and we're going to go back to that plan and see how much of it has gotten done and how much of it has not gotten done, and work with the communities of Ward 7 to be able to ensure that it's still contemporary and still reflects what it is that people want. But there are 3 areas that I especially want to focus on. One is technology. We've got tremendous technology opportunities in this city. How many of you all are familiar with 1776? 1776 is an organization that was created out of the ingenuity of a couple of people who we worked closely with. It opened its doors in April of 2013. And we put the money into helping them open their doors. They had nothing. They had no one at that stage other than a dream. Today, 1776 occupies almost half of a building on 15th Street downtown, and it now has 260 technology startups that are right there. Now, I'm saying to myself, why can't we do that in Ward 7? Why can't we bring startups to Ward 7 to create those jobs, to help our young people understand how to use technology, and to bring more economic development to our city? Anybody know what retail leakage is?
Yes.
Something we worked on also, and we're going to bring that to Ward 7 as well. Retail leakage, for those who don't know, is people who live in a particular area and they go to another jurisdiction to spend their money. And it's unfortunately very easy over here because you just go up the street and you're in Prince George's County. Now, I love our friends in Prince George's County. I'm a good friend of the county executive, Bruce Sherman Baker. His chief administrative officer, which is like the city administrator, is Nick Majette, who did a great job working with us at DCRA. I think the world of Nick, but I ain't turning the business over to them, okay? If we can keep the business here in Ward 7, that's what we're going to do. That was one of the reasons why we wanted Walmart, to be able to upgrade those 2 shopping centers and be able to have amenities that were available to people. So we can keep those tax dollars here in the District of Columbia. And then there's another one. Foreign direct investment. And Pastor, they probably sitting over there, what the heck are you talking about, Greg? Well, that is just trying to bring dollars, to the District of Columbia, and now bring them towards 7. That will facilitate growth and development in our economic areas. Let me give you a couple of examples. Creative financing. I bet you there's not 10 people in this room who know what EB-5 is. Probably don't care what EB-5 is, right? EB-5, when I went to China twice, and both times that we went there, we worked on the EB-5 program. And then folks saying, okay, what is the EB-5 program? It is where people who live elsewhere, who are, who's citizens, elsewhere, can invest in economic development projects principally in the United States. And it's 2 things. If you're willing to invest $500,000, if you're willing to then guarantee there'll be 10 jobs associated with it, which is every one of the projects that we're working on in Ward 7, there's no question about that. Then you get a visa to come to the U.S. And frankly, the first time I went, we had a meeting with 80 people who were sitting in the same room, And every one of them invested when that was over with. That means we generated out of that meeting $40 million. And for those who don't know, we actually have that kind of financing that is available at Skyland at this stage if we can find the right people to come in and be the anchor for that site. So I want to bring more EB-5 money there, more TIF financing. What is TIF? That's tax increment financing. What is tax increment financing? Basically it says, if you can show that the project that you're doing will throw off enough dollars, new tax dollars, to be able to pay for it, we'll loan the money to you. It's basically the city helping to generate money to stimulate the development of projects. We got tremendous challenges associated. Go down Pennsylvania Avenue, right below the Sousa Bridge, and you'll see the challenges that we have there. We got Minnesota Avenue, we got Parkside, continuing development. We've got many areas in Ward 7, for which I think that there will be financing. Think about the District of Columbia. The District of Columbia is hot at this stage. We've just got to be able to take advantage of it for the benefit of those communities that need desperate infusion of resources. You know, and then we started something. Anybody remember vocational education? That was a really bad decision back in the 90s when that was ended. The baby in the bathroom was thrown out in one fell swoop. Well, there's no question that the curricula that was being provided at that time needed to be upgraded. But you need to throw the whole concept out the door. And we brought it back. We brought it back. And we're going to use it, H.D. Woodson and Friendship, our two high schools, and three high schools. We got Idea, we got Friendship, and we got H.D. Woodson. Two of them, and we want to bring on a third, are actually involved in creating modern-day opportunities for vocational education, now called career and technical education. And guess what the three areas are that they're focusing on? They're focusing on hospitality, they're focusing on information technology, and they're focusing on construction and engineering. Anybody know why those three areas were chosen?
Hottest area in town. Hottest thing in town right now.
Yeah.
Actually, nationally, locally, and internationally.
Yep. That's where the jobs are, right? That's where the opportunities are. And there's no reason why we shouldn't expose our young people to those career opportunities. It means if you come out of high school, there'll be a job for you, there'll be an opportunity, or you can go into college and pursue a career path in any one of those three areas. So you're going to see more of that. We're going to try to make sure that H.D. Woodson expands the curricula that it has. That we're going to try to make sure that Friendship continues to expand. And then we're going to try to bring it to the extent it doesn't already exist into Idea, public charter school, which of course is right here in Ward 7 as well. So, you know, there are any number of things that we need to do to continue to grow our ward. But I want to ask you, you know, to try to dream with me. And that is, and not a nightmare. You know, I can go to any meeting I want to on any given day and find people that tell you what's wrong with everything. It's depressing, man. It's depressing to sit there and there's some people who love that stuff. I'm not one of them, I tell you. There are people who love sitting there talking about what's wrong with stuff. And then after they tell you what's wrong with everything, then they go home and do nothing. And they come back next month to share the same stuff with you again. They sound just a little different at that stage. So, you know, I want people to come out and be involved. But if your only reason for coming out and being involved is to be able to tell me what's wrong with everything, send me an email, okay? Send me a text message. Do it on Facebook. Do it with Instagram. Do it on some form of social media. That way I don't have to hear it in my ear, you know, every couple of minutes. So I'm going to ask you to dream about the future of this ward. And that is, we want to continue to bring crime down, don't we? Yeah. We want crime to be at a point where it is no more prevalent in Ward 7 than it is anywhere else in the District of Columbia. We also want people to be able to use health care. You know, one of the things that I was working on at the end of my, just not at the end, I had my last budget, and that was to be able to build a new United Medical Center in Ward 8, which of course is right across the way from Ward 7. Anybody know there is no hospital in this city, west of, east of North Capitol Street? There is no hospital. And I had in that budget $335 million to be able to build a new hospital. And when we all of a sudden we lost the primary, I'll call it something else in another conversation. When we lost the primary, the budget became fair game at that stage, and it was just picked apart at that point. And one of the things that got picked apart was the hospital for the people on this end of the city. 85% of the people who use a hospital on the east end of the District of Columbia go to the west side to be able to go to the hospital. That shouldn't be. We should be able to have a facility over here that we are mighty proud of, and where people can go when they need to go. And around that, we need to build a healthcare system, because in addition to that, we had clinics, additional clinics to be built. You already know we built a new clinic over here in Parkside, right? The Unity Healthcare Clinic is over there. But the idea was to build a full healthcare system that would be available to people where they want to live, where they live, where they want to be served. You know, it's just like a shopping center. It's just like the other amenities, and that is, we want things to be as convenient as they possibly can for people where they live. That people don't feel like they have to send their kids to the other side of the city to go to school. They don't have to go to somewhere else to go to the hospital if that's where they need to go. That they don't have to go to Prince George's County or somewhere else in order to be able to shop. That the amenities are right here. And frankly, that is a vision that we need to make sure is fully institutionalized in the psyche of the people who live in the city and the people who live in Ward 7 of the District of Columbia. So, along with that, we want to make sure that people feel fully enfranchised. You know, and that is, by fully enfranchised, it means that we enjoy the same rights as everybody else, because nobody reduced my taxes. Nobody told me I have to pay that tax. So, now, you know, most people know I don't drink, but I'd love to be able to stand here right now and salute everybody in this room with a soda. Now, I like sodas. I'm not talking about a Coca-Cola. I'm not talking about a Pepsi-Cola. And I'm not talking about a Sprite. I'm not talking about Dr. Pepper. There's only one soda for us, ladies and gentlemen. And that is the one that is clear, it's effervescent, it's lively. You know what that is? 7 Up.